All flowers are beautiful, but the most beautiful of all the flowers are children. This quote from Oscar Wilde's The Selfless Giant is something, when I heard it in my childhood, it has stayed with me throughout my life. I'll tell you the story in brief. The Selfish Giant. The selfish giant is a giant who is supposed to be very, very mean. He does not allow children or anybody inside his castle or inside his garden. He had gone to his cousin's place for many, many years and he did not come back. So what the children did, they saw that he's not going to be around for a long time. So they crept inside the garden and they used to play there. And one day, the giant comes back. And when he sees children and that they are playing all over the place, he orders them to get out. And then what he does, he builds huge walls all around the fence. Thick walls, very tall walls, so that they can never enter inside. And nobody can enter inside his castle and the garden. Now what happens is that seasons come and seasons go. So likewise, after spring, winter and frost had arrived. But the winter and frost did not leave the giant's castle and the garden. And the giant kept wondering that this time the winter and the frost is just way too long. Why is it not going? And so the giant waited and waited and waited for the summer and spring to come. But it didn't come for a very, very long time. Suddenly one day, he heard a bird chirping. And he was very, very surprised because he had not heard a good sound for a very long time. And he was extremely happy to hear that. So he goes near the window to see. And then he sees that the frost is gone, the winter is gone, and there is spring and summer. But how did that happen? He saw that the children had made a hole in one of the fence and they had creeped inside. And they were playing, they were all around, and wherever there were kids, there was spring and summer. The giant realized his mistake. And that day he decided that he will never stop kids from coming inside his garden. Then he also saw that there is one tree in one corner of his garden that still had frost on it. He observed closely and he sees that there's a small boy waiting to climb the tree and he is not able to do that. So the giant decides that he will go and help the child. The giant goes near the child, picks the child up and places him on the branch. The boy was extremely overjoyed. He hugged the giant and kissed the giant. The giant felt extremely peace inside his heart. He was so much at peace that he decided forever that he is not going to be mean and selfish like the way he has been all this while. He wants all seasons to come into his life. And yes, he welcomed children inside the castle and the garden. Days passed by, many days went, and then children would come and go. But that little boy never came back. And the giant would wonder, and he kept asking about the boy, and nobody apparently knew about him. And then the giant kept waiting and waiting that someday probably that boy will come back and that he could meet him. Years and years and years passed by, and the giant turned really, really old. He was very feeble and weak of his old age. It was winter as usual. Suddenly, one of those winter days, he looked out of the window and he saw that the same corner tree had blooms on it. And it was as if there was no frost there. There were butterflies, flowers, and the tree was in full bloom. And he wondered what happened. So he went near the tree and he saw the same boy was there. But this boy had a lot of wounds on his body. The giant got very furious and he asked the boy, "Who did this to you? Tell me. I will go and slay that person." The boy said, "These are wounds of love. Long ago, you allowed me to be in your garden and in your paradise. This time, I have come to take you to my paradise." The next day, all of the people in the village found that the giant was dead. Every time, my dear friends, I listen to this story or I read this story, I've had tears in my eyes. Even as a child, I felt this story somewhere inside me. And I want to share with you 3 very important things that this story has taught me about myself and my life. The very first thing, the giant was selfish, and out of his selfish and mean attitude, he had built up huge walls. This was the very first thing that touched me as a child, because I had huge walls around me, in my mind, in my being, in my behavior. I used to block people out of my life. Even as a child, I knew that was true about me. I did not welcome new people into my life. And it was only when I broke away those walls, I realized that the way the giant had children in his life, I had so many angels who came to help me in my life. And I have deep gratitude today for all of them. The second thing that I learned is that just like the giant's winter ended, the winter and the frost ended from his life, even in our lives, the winter and the frost is never forever. If we really pay attention, all seasons are important in our life. Happy days are just as important, and so are sad days. Even as a child, I chose the frost in my life. I chose to be cold, to have that winter season in my life and not let happiness come. I did not experience too much of joy as a child. And even later on in my life, I realized that the winter season happened only when I allowed it to be. The winter in my experience, in my life, and in my thought ceases away, and the warmth of joy and love comes in when I give way to it. And my dear friends, the third, very important lesson. The selfish giant was not really selfish. And the end is always beautiful. Because he moved out from being selfish to a selfless person, there was this giant that was selfish and there was this other giant that is selfless. His end was indeed beautiful. Now, how did this impact me? The selfish and the selfless Gauravi both exist in me, even then as a child and even now as an adult. And both of these come up in different ways in different situations. I simply need to make a choice to remain that selfish person or to become selfless. And yes, I know, just the way the giant experienced a beautiful ending in his life, I will also experience a beautiful ending of my life. If I died tomorrow, I know that I will have a smile on my face. And though I am completely moved and touched by this story at this particular moment, it fills my being with so much of joy that even that death and that ending doesn't seem like an end. The ending will definitely be an absolutely great beginning for me when I reach there. And I have that deep hope and faith inside me, the way the giant was able to find. and the little boy was able to give it to him. I sincerely wish and pray for all of you to find this giant inside you and to awaken it from being a selfish one to being someone who's willing and ready to give himself or herself to others, who is willing to serve others and be of great service to humanity. Thank you.